Have you ever heard of a deer caught in an invisible trap? It sounds like something out of a fairy tale, doesn't it? But what if I told you this isn't about magic, but about a fascinating and slightly strange phenomenon in the animal kingdom? This story begins on a remote island, a place that became a living laboratory for a truly bizarre ecological puzzle. Imagine this, a small, isolated island, lush and green, seemingly a paradise for deer. A few of them are introduced to this new home, and with no natural predators and an abundance of food, their population explodes. It's a classic success story, right? The deer thrive, their numbers growing year after year. But then, things take an unexpected turn. The deer start dying off, not from starvation, not from disease, not from predators, but from something else, something invisible. This actually happened on a place called James Island in the Chesapeake Bay, and in other similar scenarios, scientists observed this exact pattern. They'd introduce a small group of Sika deer, and the population would boom. At its peak, the island was home to nearly 300 deer, which is a lot for a small piece of land. But then, the numbers crashed. The deer began to die in large numbers. And when researchers examined the bodies, they were stumped. The deer were perfectly healthy, their stomachs were full, and there were no signs of any known diseases. So, what was the culprit? The initial autopsies revealed something shocking: enlarged adrenal glands. The adrenal glands are responsible for producing stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol. In these deer, the glands were overworked, exhausted, and had failed. It was as if they had literally been scared to death. But scared of what? There were no wolves, no bears, no hunters. The island was a safe haven. This is where the story gets really interesting. The scientists proposed a theory, one that sounds almost unbelievable. They believed the deer were dying from chronic stress caused by social pressure. Think about it. When the population became too dense, the deer were constantly in each other's space. Every turn led to another deer. Every meal was a competition. The constant jostling, the endless social interactions, the lack of personal space, it all added up. For an animal that values its personal bubble, this constant social overload was a living nightmare. It wasn't a physical threat they could see and run from. It was an omnipresent, invisible pressure. Their bodies were in a perpetual state of high alert, their fight-or-flight response constantly triggered. Day in and day out, their systems were flooded with stress hormones, with no chance to recover. Eventually, their adrenal systems just gave out. They died from stress-induced shock. This phenomenon was named shock disease, or adrenal stress syndrome. It wasn't a disease in the traditional sense, like a virus or bacteria. It was a physiological breakdown caused by a psychological state. The trap wasn't made of steel or rope. It was woven from the very fabric of their social environment. The island paradise had become an invisible prison of stress. This brings us to a famous experiment that solidified this theory, known as Universe 25. While it involved mice, not deer, the parallels are chilling and profound. In the 1960s, an ethologist named John B. Calhoun created what he called a mouse utopia. He built a large enclosure, a perfect world for mice. It had unlimited food and water, no predators, no disease, and a comfortable climate. It was designed to be a paradise where the mice could live their best lives. He started with 4 pairs of healthy mice. And just like the deer, their population initially soared. Life was good. The mice were happy, healthy, and multiplying rapidly. Even with unlimited resources, the enclosure became crowded. Calhoun observed that the social structure of the mouse society completely broke down. The males, who would normally defend their territory and families, became apathetic. They stopped building nests and protecting their young. Some became hyper-aggressive, attacking others without provocation. Other males, which Calhoun called the beautiful ones, completely withdrew from society. They did nothing but eat, drink, sleep, and groom themselves, showing no interest in mating or any social interaction. The females also suffered. Many became aggressive and abandoned their young. The infant mortality rate skyrocketed. The mice were living in a state of constant social chaos and stress. The population growth slowed to a halt and then began to decline. Even when the population dropped back down to a manageable number, with plenty of space and resources available again, the mice never recovered. The social behaviors were broken. The last surviving mouse died in this paradise, just a few years after the experiment began. The entire colony had died out, not from a lack of resources, but from a complete social collapse. The utopia had become a behavioral sink, a psychological hell. So what's the connection? Both the deer on the island and the mice in Universe 25 were caught in an invisible trap. It wasn't a physical cage, but a psychological one. A trap built from overcrowding, social breakdown, and the relentless stress that comes with it. For these animals, the very presence of too many of their own kind became the deadliest predator of all. It's a powerful and somewhat unsettling lesson from the natural world. It shows us that survival isn't just about food, water, and shelter. The psychological and social environment is just as critical. The need for personal space, for stable social structures, for a sense of order and purpose, these aren't just human desires. They appear to be fundamental needs for many social creatures. When we think of a trap, we usually picture something physical. But these stories reveal a deeper, more subtle kind of trap. The deer weren't trapped by a fence, but by the stress of constant social friction. The mice weren't trapped by a cage, but by the breakdown of their own society. Their paradise contained the seeds of its own destruction. It's a fascinating, if somber, reminder of the intricate balance of nature. The health of an individual is inextricably linked to the health of its community and its environment. It shows that sometimes the most dangerous threats are the ones we can't see, the ones that build up slowly over time, not with a sudden snap, but with a slow, grinding pressure. The invisible trap of stress. This really makes you think, doesn't it? It highlights the delicate interplay between population density, social behavior, and individual well-being. It's a complex dance, and when the rhythm is broken, the consequences can be catastrophic, even in a world that seems perfect on the surface. Nature has its own checks and balances, and they aren't always what we expect. Sometimes, the deadliest predator is the crowd. It's a story that stays with you, a cautionary tale written by nature itself. The image of a healthy deer, full of food, collapsing from an unseen force, is a haunting one. It's a testament to the power of the mind and the social world over the physical body. So the next time you see a deer in the wild, maybe you'll see it a little differently, not just as a graceful animal, but as a part of a complex social web, where the invisible threads of connection and stress can be a matter of life and death. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into one of nature's strangest puzzles. If you found this as fascinating as I do, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories from the wild side of science. See you in the next one.